Hello everyone, welcome to this video where we're going to get into writing the Meteor Galaxy game using the CodeHS Javascript graphics library. So in this video I'm going to do a little bit of overview and how to draw the graphics to the screen. So some of it might be review, but I'm also going to go into some new concepts as well as do some keyboard input. So by the time you finish this video, you should be able to move shapes around on the screen with your keyboard. Let's get right into it. So first I'm going to create the project for the game, calling it Meteor Galaxy. Of course you could call it what you like. I'm going to choose JavaScript graphics and create the program. Alright, now we got our program. I'm just going to go ahead and delete the code they have there. And I'll point out a few things before we get started. So on the right hand side you'll see the documentations. You might have seen this before. It's really handy to have for reference for how to do the basic things like drawing circles, and they also provide some nice code examples for how to use their functions here. But the other thing I recommend looking at is the full documentation. This has all the methods in their CodeHS graphics library, and what's really cool is there's lots that aren't actually mentioned right here. So you can learn a lot about the library and use all of its new functionality. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle to the screen, just to show you the process for that. You can follow along in the documentation right here, and also for each video I'm going to be posting the code in my GitHub, so you can grab that and follow along with that too. I'm going to start with writing the start function. You can just write code in the top and it'll run, but I like using the start function just as a clear indicator of where my program starts. And also I like to put my brackets on their own lines, so sometimes you might see them like this, but it's just a preference that I have. I like having them lined up. I find it easier to read, but you can do it however you like. So first I'm going to create a circle. So variable circle equals new circle. So what we're doing here is creating a new circle object, and when you look at the documentation for that, it takes in a radius, so we need to give it a radius. I'm going to give mine a radius of 25, and next I'm going to do is set the position. So this sets where it will be drawn on the canvas. The canvas is kind of like a coordinate plane like you've used in math, but on here the top left corner is 0, 0, and x increases as you go right, and y increases as you go down. So I'm going to say circle to access circle, and then call a method or function on that circle. So circle.set position, and now we're going to set the xy position of that. So I'm going to put it in the center. So what I want to do is get the width of the canvas, and you can do that by just writing get width, and then divide by 2, and then get height and divide that by 2. So you'll get the width, and then in half, and then the height, and then divide by 2. So I get put in the center, and then I'm gonna call circle dot set color, and then right here you can put in a hexadecimal code for color, or you can use their predefined ones or create color from RGB. I'm gonna use one of their predefined, which you can access with uppercase color dot and then whatever color you'd like. So I'll go ahead and do green for this circle, and then to add it to the canvas you just say add, and then the variable that you're referencing that object with. So add circle. Let's run that, and we got the circle in the center of the screen. So that might be a bit of a review for some people, but now let's get into something kind of interesting. Alright, now I'm going to show you a concept that might be new for some of you, and it's about how referencing objects works. So first let's start with just storing values in variables. Right here I have variable 1, and I'm assigning that to 2, and then I have value 2, and what I'm doing here is taking the value from value 1 and then copying it over to value 2. And when I increment value 2 by 1, and I print out the values, you'll see value 1 is 2 and value 2 is 3. And that should work how most of us expect, because once you add to value 2, or once you copy the value from value 1 over to value 2, these two variables are independent of each other. So changing value 2 doesn't have effect on value 1. Now what I'd like to show you is how objects are referenced. So right here, I say that variable circle1 equals new circle. What this isn't doing is it's not storing the data from circle directly in the variable circle1. So circle1 doesn't hold the color or the position or those sort of things. What circle1 is holding is a reference to the new circle, and this reference allows the computer to know where this new circle is being stored in its memory. So with this reference, you can edit properties like I did before, saying position, setting color, and adding to the canvas. But you can also pass this reference to other variables or other data structures. You can put the reference in an array or a map or something like that. And what that means is that anything that has the reference is still referring to the same circle, the circle right here that's drawn in the canvas. So right here, when I assign circle 2 the same value circle 1, what this is doing is giving circle 2 the reference to this new circle that was defined right here. So by using this reference, I can set the color to green, and that'll set the color of this circle to green. So even though these are two different variables, they're still referencing the same object. So you can use either of them to change the properties of the same circle. And this is an important concept that you'll use as I go on with this tutorial. Now I'm going to get into the timers and keyboard movement. There's one thing I want to note, and you might have seen this before, the key down method right here in the keyboard events documentation. This allows you to put a function here to be called. So in this case, the example has key down. That takes in the parameter E, and from E you can get the key codes. And this is one way that you can get keyboard input, but I'll show you what happens when you use it for movement. So right here, I hit the up arrow key, and there's a little bit of delay before it starts moving. And then when I change directions, there's delay between that, and I also can't move in two directions at once. So it has its issues when it comes to movement. It's a bit better for typing when you only need like keys to be hit once. So if you wanted the user to be able to type out a sentence, then that might be a good option. You can also see why the delay is there, because when you're typing characters just into a text editor like this one, you'll see I hit A, and then there's a little bit of delay before it'll start typing a bunch of A's. And so I think that's what's going on with this method, is it behaves somewhat like that. So I'll show you another way that you can write keyboard input that's a bit smoother. Let's go back over to Meteor Galaxy, and we're going to write a new function, and this will be called function move. And now what we need to do is set up a timer to call move repeatedly. So you can do this by writing set timer, and then you put the name of the function that you want to be called, and then the delay time in milliseconds. So what this means is the function I wrote move will be called every 20 milliseconds. Next, what I'm going to do is move this circle variable outside of the start function, because it has to do with the variable scope. When you declare a variable inside of two parentheses or curly brackets, it won't be accessible in other methods. It'll only exist within these two curly brackets. So I need to move it outside so that the move function can also access it. So what I'm going to do next is check for keyboard input. So I'm going to say if, and then is key pressed. And then next we need to give it the key code. So the key codes are still the same for this method as they are in the example. So I can say keyboard dot left right here. Then what I'm going to do is set up a couple of variables. So I'm going to say variable move x and variable move y. Actually, I need to initialize both of these to 0. So next what I'm going to do is when the left is pressed, I'm going to decrease the value of move x by I'm going to make a new variable called move speed, and that will be 2, just to keep it consistent so it's easy for you to modify the speed. So I'm going to say move x minus equals move speed. So that will subtract the move speed from move x if the left keyboard button is pressed. And one thing I also want to mention, if you have if statements, you can leave the brackets off of them if you only have one line next to run. So I'm just going to do this to save a bit of space since it's a little bit repetitive. And I'm going to copy this 3 more times. And then set up the other variables. Alright, so now that we have the variables are being adjusted based on what keys are pressed, now we need to actually move the circle, and all you need to do that is circle dot move, and then I'm gonna just put the move x variable and the move y variable. Alright, now let's run this and see. Now we can move the circle around using the arrow keys. So that's cool. You may have noticed this isn't in the documentation on the right, and so I was able to learn this from looking at the full documentation, which is an awesome resource. So you can see right here, is key pressed. That's where I learned that this is a method that you can call within the CodeHS JavaScript library. Alright, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can see the code on my GitHub, which I'll post a link to that in the description. So there you'll find a folder and for each video, and inside that folder it'll have the progress made on the Meteor Galaxy game as well as the other examples I write. So they're there for your reference if you'd like to use them. I hope that each one of you will have a great day and that you'll stick through the end of the series. See you in the next one. Bye.